Hey there everybody and welcome. My name is Rick Utsi here with Dog River Design Everything Tech channel. Yeah, we have been playing with the ASUS ROG Ally, ROG Ally. I don't know how to quite say it. We'll just call it the ASUS ROG Ally. And we've come to a decision. Let's talk about it. All right, so let me just spoiler alert here. I said right in the beginning that I had like no experience with handheld gaming devices, much less handheld Windows devices. And yeah, things started off rough right out of the gate. It had, gosh, between what seemed like hundreds of updates, it took a long time to get this thing up and going. And then once it got up and going, we had to reset Windows twice actually. And then it's just been a challenge. Bottom line, all of the inconsistencies that you have with Windows devices seem to just happen on this. And I gotta give props to the hardware. I think is really cool. Like high refresh rate screen, bright screen, built-in controllers, really cool processor with a pretty good APU built in. All of those things are really neat, right? So, and at a price point, I think $700, really fair. We got 16 gigs of RAM, we got a 500 gig hard drive, all of these things, pretty neat, right? But then what I realized is you start adding things to make Windows actually be able to play games, right? So you got Steam and Battle.net and whatever else you got going on. And all of a sudden that 512 dries up in a real quick hurry. And I tend to want to play more than 2 games. So by the time I've got a few games loaded, I'm out of room. And I want to use this for more than just playing games. If it's just a game device, then for me it has very limited value. If it can do multiple things, so I don't have to carry all of this stuff. Okay, now we're talking. But then we hit kind of our first snag. Now the easy thing was actually dropping a 1 terabyte SSD in here. That was awesome, or NVMe I should say. The way they've built this, the serviceability to get in there, pop the cover, drop a new drive in, it was sweet. You know, I cloned it before doing that. It was actually a really easy process. So kudos to there. But I was kind of chafed a bit having to spend 2.5 times as much on the drive versus, you know, a standard NVMe. So 100 and some change for a 1 terabyte that'll fit in here versus, you know, 1 terabyte that'll fit in a laptop. We're going to get to why this is on the table here in a minute. You know, I did use this for the first video to edit the video, so I could get more use out of it, but it doesn't keep up as much as even something like this does. And again, we'll get to this in a minute. And I wanted to give it the greatest possible shake, right? So I did go ahead and buy this dock. It's a cool little dock. It just, you know, plug this in, power supply goes into there, and you have USB ports, you've got SD card. It actually worked really slick. And as long as you remember to check your legend here as to which ports are what, just because they're blue doesn't mean that they're USB 3. These top ports actually are USB 2. And so if you plug your hard drives into that, they go really slow. So don't do that. But yeah, I mean, it actually works pretty good. Hook up your big screen. I actually use this station back here to edit with. And that was actually kind of a cool experience. But it was sluggish. And the thing that it runs into, if you're running just with this device, 16 gigs, while if you're just gaming, isn't bad, frankly. I mean, you got 4 going to the APU, or the integrated GPU. I don't know what the right terminology is there, but you got 4 gigs going to the, you know, the graphics part of it, and it leaves 12 left over, which isn't bad. It did okay, but you can burn that up pretty quick if you're doing anything that is productive, production related, content creation related. You're going to use that up pretty quick. It'd be great if you could upgrade the RAM in that. Again, we're going to get to this in a minute. So I wanted to see, all right, let's give this thing the best possible shake. The real sweet spot is going to be that unit with the XG Mobile. So I went on to eBay and I got this guy. This is a 3080 16 gig unit. Sweet. I paid about $1,000 for it. Got a good deal. Thank you, eBay seller, for that. And you know, it made a difference, right? Because I could turn the memory sharing to auto, so it used like nothing, hardly. So all 16 gigs for the most part, well, 15 gigs, 15 and a half gigs, were dedicated to the system to run, and that was actually pretty slick. Worked pretty good. But then I realized I've just created a greatly less portable thing. If I'm going to take this on a trip, I'd been thinking, all right, my daughter could play this in the back seat, can play some games, have some fun, and then when I get where we're going, I could plug it in, we can watch movies on it. Awesome. If I need to do a little work, I could just use the TV in the hotel room, wireless keyboard. I'm thinking, okay, I'm seeing how this is going to really be a win-win, winner chicken dinner, right? But in order to get actual performance, I got to bring this with me, which now it's less portable, and certainly not, I don't know, not very practical in my opinion. Great on my desk over here. I just set it up, plug it in, good to go, right? But then I started thinking about some other things. Like I was trying to play some games on it, and plugged in over here. I mean, I play Valorant. That's what I play, and I just have times suck for me almost. I just go play some games and then I get back to work. I'm not a serious gamer. I just like to blow off steam and then get back to the other things I got going on. So for me, Valorant is really cool for that. Or I made some Modern Warfare 2. We'll play that. You know, that's kind of cool too. And Valorant was horrible. I mean, the experience on this hooked up to that monitor, now with the XG Mobile is pretty good, but when I would run just on the unit, it was, I don't know if you've ever driven a boat, but when you drive a boat, you have to sort of turn before you need to turn. So you have to like be way ahead of everything going on. And you don't stop on a dime, you sort of want to stop, you cut the throttle and you just keep going. And that's what it was like playing Valorant. I'd go move right, and I just stop, and I just stop my key press, and I just keep going. And it was very, very sluggish. It was so bad, it was just unusable. And there was no setting I could change to make that go better. And I found some other issues on games that frankly should have run great on this. They didn't. They just tended to not work well. And so I'm finding that, okay, so if I'm using just the unit, I don't have a dedicated GPU. So I've got to work with what it's got. So I'm dropping to 720. Okay, that's no big deal, small screen. I'm dropping my settings to try and get some reasonable performance. And then I've got to crank the power usage to get performance, which then tanks the battery. I'm thinking, all right, so now at every turn I have yet another compromise. And the biggest compromise on this is every time I got to crank the power to get more performance, I lose battery. So now I go from something that's supposed to be portable, light, functional, fun, fast, and you know, all that kind of stuff, to something that is one compromise after another, and I get maybe an hour battery. And I got to thinking, yeah, that's not why I bought it. Not at all. And I get that why people really like the concept, but it ain't for me. And maybe I'm just too old to appreciate what it is, and it's not the kind of gaming I do, and maybe all of that's true, because I remember games I started out with were, and I was going to date myself a little bit here, but my dad had F-19 Stealth Fighter back in the day when you had to use a Hercules graphics card, guys. I mean, we're going way back, right? I remember the first Wolfenstein game, and my buddy and my brother-in-law used to play that hard, fast, continuously. So I'm going way back. My gaming experience is more that genre, not this genre. I tried. I really did try. But I couldn't bring myself to justifying the expense of the unit, $700, the drive, another $100 and some change. So now we're $850, $860 at this point into this. And then I got $1,000 over here. Let's just say tax and shipping, we're at $2,000. So I got $2,000 sitting here. And this little docky thing, definitely at $2,000 if we don't, you know, for when I don't have this with me. A lot of money. It's a lot of money. And I remember in my last video, I asked, do you guys want me to try and see what I can get in a laptop that would be about that price point? And I gotta tell you, I had convinced myself to keep it because I couldn't find anything. I could not find a $700 laptop that had a good enough APU in it that we could play games on that would be useful. I couldn't find one. And I got, okay, so I'm looking at if I want to have something that can compete with this, it's $1,000. Yeah, it's $1,000. So I'm like, wow, okay. Maybe if I catch a sale and get it $850, which, interesting. You know, that would at least be a dedicated GPU, but it'd be like a, gosh, we have some 2050s out there. I don't know where those are coming from, or 3050s, 3050 Ti's, but nothing that was really performant, right? Gosh, okay, so this is like, all right, I've already got the XG Mobile. I'm gonna go ahead and keep it. And then I went over to my friends at Eluktronics, and I'll put a link in the video description. I have one of their Prometheus 17 water-cooled laptops. I got that back when I had open heart surgery, and I got all back from that, and I said, I'm gonna splurge, buy myself something. I survived, I made it, and I bought myself a toy, right? And that laptop is awesome. I mean, straight up awesome. It's 12700H, it's DDR5, it's got 2 NVMe slots, it's got a 3070 Ti in it. I mean, it is, and it's water cooled. Oh my gosh, it runs as good as my desktop, easily as fast as my desktop. So, I mean, I don't know how many cores we got in it, 20 cores? Yeah, or 20 threads, excuse me. So awesome. I really like what that company does, and what they do is they have third-party chassis like Clevo and other things. And I said, you know, I wonder what they have, because I've been eyeballing a bunch of their certified refurbished lines, and they have some that are, yeah, no RAM, no hard drive, right? So if you're an enthusiast, I wonder what you have sitting in the drawer, right? Maybe you got some extra RAM chips you upgraded from an older laptop, or maybe you got a 512 NVMe just sitting in a drawer because you threw an upgrade into something. I got a lot of that lying around, as you guys can see. I got a lot of parts just hanging out. And they had the Mag 15, and this chassis, it's an i7 9 something 50 whatever. I'll put the specs up. I'll put a link to it. You guys can go take a look at it. But it's a 9th gen i7, 6-core, 12-thread. It had no RAM, no hard drive, 1080p. Mechanical keyboard, 1660 Ti, Max P graphics. We'll get to how these compare in a moment. And it was $550. I had parts in the drawer that could make that work. Now, if I had to buy the parts and you had 2 memory sticks and a 512 gig NVMe, I kind of went 16 and 512, just like this has. And you can buy that for, gosh, what, $70 now? Yeah, not hard to match those specs. But then they had like this special going on, and you got a really nice desk mat. You got a pair of wireless gaming headset, and a really nice gaming mouse, and an HDMI 2.1 high-speed cable. All of that came with this at the $550. And I'm going, okay. Man, that's tough. That's a tough one. I'm going to go ahead and get it. I'm going to go ahead and buy it, and I'm going to see how it does. And let me just tell you, this thing mops the floor with that. Just absolutely mops the floor. And I know as I'm looking at my synthetic benchmarks, I'm looking at this and I'm going, all right, raw CPU power, 8 cores, 16 threads. That's pretty performant here, guys. It's really good. Not so good. At least on paper, right? But when it comes to the graphics performance, gaming performance, productivity performance, yeah, I've got to tell you, dedicated GPU, they got a long ways to go. And I don't hear anybody really saying that, because everybody's sort of singing the praises of what it can do. And all I experienced was everything it couldn't do. I mean, it could play a game, but there was a lot it just didn't keep up with. And that was really disappointing, because I really wanted to like this. Really wanted to justify keeping this and holding on to it, especially since I bought the XG Mobile. And I had actually, even though this really turned out to be stinking cool, in fact, I really like this laptop. It's sort of my second laptop. I keep it in my I live in an RV, so I keep it in my RV, and that's what I use for just, you know, in the evenings, on the weekends, you know, if I got to do some work, I got to do some research, this works really, really well. The battery's pretty decent. I get about 6.5 hours of use out of it. I mean, that's actual work. That's not like a battery benchmark on a YouTube video. That's me writing articles, doing research, actually using the thing on battery. So that's pretty cool. Graphics, photo editing, and so forth. So it really does well. And I can drop 32 gigs of RAM in that, 2 NVMe drives for 2 terabyte. You get I can do a 2 terabyte NVMe and 32 gigs dual rank DDR4 3200 megatransfer per second RAM in that for a little over $100. And that means, for me, that is just far more practical. If I want to plug it into a monitor when I go on vacation or something, I could do it. I just take an HDMI cable with me and I could do the same thing I was hoping to do with this. I could do with that, but I can do it a lot more effectively and efficiently. But that doesn't then deal with, what do I do with this guy? I spent $1,000 on the XG Mobile. I don't want to sell it because I believe it's going to be a piece of equipment I'm going to need to have for testing and playing with stuff. And the final nail in the coffin, was when Best Buy came out with this. They had a special on the Flow X16. Now the X13 is what I was really hoping to get at some point. I'm just going to set it there. We're going to have a whole video on this guy later. But the X13 is what I wanted to have for this. I thought, oh my gosh, it's thin, light, awesome, cool. And they had the X13 on sale too, but they had the X16 on sale for $900 off. So $1,100. Granted, $1,100 versus, well, what do I have into this? $1,000? Right? Really? This is like 3060, comes with the 3060. It has the 6900 HS processor, 16 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte drive. Yeah, we're talking about, gosh, it really picks up fingerprints, doesn't it? We're talking about really a no-brainer, and it'll work with this. So the concept I had, like I can have this set up, just have a little dock over there, come in, plug my laptop, have the best performance, the best of all worlds, really. And when I leave, I don't have to compromise, right? So this was like one big compromise after another. This was far more performant than that. I mean, just in real use, this just mopped the floor with that. And then this, obviously, just will blow all of this out of the water. You know, when it came down to it, that I could have my 3080, 16 gigs over here. I could do production-related workloads. I could do a game if I want to, you know, if I did want to do a little gaming. But I had everything I needed for about what we're dealing with here and something like this. And now, granted, I know this was like a crazy sale and it's already gone up in price. So it's still a great deal. It's, I think, $1,300 now. I've watched the discount just decrease. It went from $900 to $800. Now it's $700 off. But nonetheless, that is a hell of a deal, and I'm glad that I've gone through this, right? So I'm glad that I got this. I'm glad I learned what I've learned. I've learned that that ain't for me. Fine. If it's for you, awesome, more power to you. I'm glad you like it. But it's not my cup of tea, and I don't think it will be. I just don't think that's going to be something that makes sense until they can give you where you can, gosh, if you just gave us one memory slot, right? Just one memory slot. Have 16 gigs soldered and give us one slot. How cool would that be? Because you can do 5,600 megatransfers per second DDR5 now in a chip. You know, maybe something like that. It becomes like more enthusiast ready. Get the Windows interaction better. It almost went back in the box the day I tried to set it up. It was that bad. I started playing Halo. Next thing I know, it's 3 or 4 hours later, and I'm realizing, okay, I might keep this. But yeah, Yeah, it's for me, it's not ready for prime time. Now, I'll tell you one thing I do hope ASUS does, or AMD does, really. And ASUS actually could do it. I don't know who had the really cool Chromebook, and I say this in air quotes, gaming Chromebook. It just uses, it doesn't have a decent graphics chip. It just uses online, the GeForce Now stuff. But imagine if you had the APU out of this guy, right? What is it? The Z1 Extreme. You take the Z1 Extreme, right? You've got, just imagine this. You had a high refresh rate, HD panel, and a decent laptop that wasn't too heavy, but it was all, let's say it's just all battery, right? So biggest battery you can get, 90 watt hour, 99 watt hour, whatever. Huge battery, right? You had the Z1 Extreme. You had 32 gigs of RAM. I don't think you need to have it removable. Just give us 32 gigs of RAM. That gives the graphics enough RAM and the system enough RAM. And give us, still stick with the removable storage. And if you want to use little bitty drives, that's fine. Use the little bitty drives. That's fine. We pay a premium for the functionality. But imagine that sort of thin and light, energy efficient, yet performant laptop. And okay, now you'd really have my attention. I wouldn't want it running Chrome OS because that kind of has its limitations, to say the least. But that is a Windows laptop. I'm thinking, okay, give us good speakers. I don't need the controller. I don't need any of that stuff. Give me mouse, a good keyboard, HD screen, high refresh rate, 120 is fine, 144, 165, all of that, any of that stuff work good. And then I'm thinking, okay, because I think the thing that most impressed me about this isn't all the fluff. It's that processor. Because what that is able to do, I think is impressive. I think it really is impressive. And if you could take that and put it in something, these entry-level, affordable, long battery life, utility PC kind of deal, long live the netbook maybe. I know that's, again, dating myself a bit. But that, I think, would be really cool. But we don't have that. So I would say, guys, if you like handheld gaming and that's your thing, and you like controller gaming and you just got to have it, go for it. It's a great piece of equipment. Just know you're going to have to make compromises, and the setup may be maybe painful. If you're going to want to do more on it, like you're going to want to use it partially docked for work and other things, or I don't know, just utility. I mean, it doesn't have to be work, but you're going to use it for utility stuff besides gaming. Docked and so forth, you may find that you would have been better served by another option. I would take a look at stuff that you can get like Eluktronics has. This kit here is actually a Nook. Believe it or not, that's an Intel chassis. It's a Nook 9 Extreme laptop chassis. They have one step up from this. You could go from the 1660 Ti to I think it's a 2070 RTX 2070 Max Q. That was another $200. It blew me out of my budget with regards to this, why I didn't go that route. If I were to buy for me, I would get the RTX version just because it future-proofs it a little bit for me. But the performance I get out of this with the 1660 Ti, man, it plays anything I want to play. Absolutely no problem. So anyway, guys, that's going to be it. I don't know if this is useful or not, and I know it's certainly kind of bucking the convention of what other people are saying. I think a lot of people are enamored of what this is, but for me, $700,000-$800,000, I'd much rather have a laptop. Now I know, and now you know, and hopefully that was useful to you guys. Guys, that's gonna be it. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah, if you guys like the channel, let me know. Leave your comments, and I look forward to hearing from you. If you have ideas, sorry, my email's going off. If you have ideas of things you'd like to see, let me know that too, and I will try and get them worked in. For now, that's going to be it. My name is Rick Utzer here with Dog River Design, Everything Tech Channel. Thanks for watching.